If someone said to me in 2003, we won't win the World Cup for 20 years, I'd go, what happened? What went wrong?
You've lived such a varied life as well, Clive. Of course, starting in the classroom, you were a huge success in business, then into sport as well. Is it nice to be back in a kind of teaching environment?
Yeah, my background is I'm a teacher. I make a big thing about this, that my degree was from Loughborough University, did a degree in sports science, then did a year Cert Ed, so I'm a qualified teacher. Never went into teaching because in those days rugby was amateur, so I just don't think it was right to be a teacher and try and play for England. So did all that stuff, but I make it very clear that I think the reason I was reasonably successful as a sports coach because I'm a qualified teacher. The team that won in 2003, which is 20 years ago now, makes me always shake my head when it's 20 years ago. Every one of my team staff was teachers. We're all ex-teachers because the game was amateur, then the game went professional. So every single one of my coaches, my strength and conditioning, were all qualified teachers. And I think there's a lot in this that sometimes I think people go into sport to coach in any sport, and they've played the game at a high level. And there's lots of stories of high-level rugby players, for example, who have played at the highest level, won World Cups, then they go into coaching and fail badly. I think it's as simple as they've never been taught how to teach. And I was lucky enough to do a degree in sports science, but also, most importantly, a year in Cert Ed teaching. And teaching is coaching. Coaching is teaching. There's absolutely no difference. And I think only looking back now, it's really important that actually happened. And I see so many sort of top players going to coaching without actually think it's easy. It's not. Standing in front of the classroom, a bunch full of kids, asking the teachers here. It's not easy, and it's something that I wouldn't envy anyone really. But in terms of coaching, it's the same thing. I'm saying a bunch of rugby players. What do we do? How do we do it?
Well, it's interesting, because when you think about ex-players going into management, it happens in football all the time, obviously. It's not the same skill set, obviously. You have been immersed in the game your entire life. You might understand it very well tactically, but the communication skills might not necessarily be there. The leadership skills, you've talked about these teamships and how you've built teams and kind of applied the sort of laws of business to a sporting kind of environment. And it's amazing that these huge institutions are run in that way, Clive, where they're not as rigorous, they're not as kind of detailed in how they would.
I think I was just lucky because I said when I took the England route, I was the first full-time coach for the rugby team, for the English rugby team. So they appointed me, but even then I'm not sure they quite knew my background. And the teaching background was really significant, but probably equally as importantly, I had two kind of business careers. Had 18 years in business before taking over the rugby team. I worked for Xerox, ranked Xerox for nearly 9 years, including 5 in Australia, as a sales director. But most importantly, when we came back from Australia, I set up my own small leasing and finance company based on the skills I learned with Xerox Finance. When I say small, it's like 10 people at a height. That was the biggest skill set I learned, and I ran that for eight years. Running 10 people when everything's on the line. If we're not successful, the kids have got to change schools. We've got to sell the house. It's a small business, but it's like running a rugby team. So when I took over the rugby team, I ran like a small business, and I think that the players were quite shocked because, quite simply, I was asking a lot of questions. What do you think? What do you think? Well, I don't think they were used to this. They used to be told what to do. That the kind of old-fashioned coaching, certainly in the UK, what I saw was the coach, the front line, just telling everyone what to do. The players said nothing. There was no engagement. You run a small business like that, you've got no chance. So my small leasing company, to a fault, I hired people better than me. And it's all about talking to them, what do they think, and really listening to how you develop the business. And I think those two skill sets, in terms of allowed me to take over the rugby team and be reasonably successmal.
Did you stumble upon that revelation, or did you think when you were given the job, did you think?
No,
this is
I
how
just
I'm
stumbled
do it?
on it. I can see, modestly now, so I can see why they chose me. I was coaching the England under-21 team at the time. The game had gone professional. They needed a coach. I'd played for England. I was now coaching the under-21 team as an amateur, because I could do that because I was running my own business, which was going quite well. So I had the time to do it for nothing because I was an amateur coach. And it's only when you look back and when you kind of move on, you can actually, why I wrote a book about it and started to study why were we, at the time you just do it, you just offer the job. And even getting the job was quite a story in itself because, when they came to see me, it was almost like I was being anointed. You've been chosen by the RFU committee to, and I said, well, that's great, but what's the salary? And they looked at me and said, well, we haven't really thought about that. And I said, well, actually, it's quite important.
It's an honour.
No, seriously, that's what they thought. Coach, because in the amateur days, it was an honour. You were almost given and it was a huge privilege to coaching. Don't get me wrong, but when the game goes professional, other things got to come into it. Especially when I was running my own company. mortgages, kids' school fees, all this sort of stuff. And they hadn't really even gone down that line about what they're going to pay me. They just thought I was the right choice to actually do it. And eventually we got the agreement done financially. But it was going from amateur to professional, and in every single way it was going from that amateur to professional era was quite challenging, but also glad I was part of it because I was kind of leading the charge at that stage.
You were the leader of a group. You've often said, and you have said in the past, Clive, that great teams are made up of great individuals, and I know you've worked with some of the very best, both on the field and off the field, and various guises, whether that's in the sporting realm of rugby and business, of course now with your ski academy. Who for you is an individual that's epitomised everything that you need in order to be successful in an elite performance environment? Is there one individual that you always hold up to the young kids or teachers when you travel around and say that right there is the embodiment of everything that you need in an individual to be a success in a team?
Yeah, I think first of all I can just answer just explain a bit more about great teams made of great individuals. Well, what I see in sport and business, and I do quite a bit of consulting in business now, that often they almost spend too much time on team. They think there's some magic solution on teamwork, and I've kind of just and I've kind of got through that. And what I learned was this, as a rugby coach, is probably easy for me to talk about, is I saw my main job was to improve every individual player. So if I got a team of 15 players in a rugby team, my number one job, if I can make every individual a better player, a better person, the team stuff almost takes care of itself. So I see so many people do team, and no, not enough on the individual. So I promise you, coaching the team stuff is quite easy compared to coaching the individual. So I make no bones about it. I had some amazing players. But I'm trying to make Johnny Wilkinson, Martin Johnson, Lawrence Ario better players. And that is challenging. So to do that, you've got to bring in, you've got to get the finance, the budget, the best coaches, and you're trying to make them better at what they actually do. But you get every individual, and this is what I learned from a small company. If you get every individual thinking, wow, we're working for a great leader here, a great boss, he is investing in me, and they really are going, wow, thank you, I'm trying to make you better. But if you're making everyone better, you're going to be better as a team. And that's how it actually works. And we invest in every part of, and this is really the background to the Perform Better program. We're trying to make them world leaders in nutrition, all these stuff, sleep and recovery, health, all these things to make them better players. And you just look around the room one day and you got great individuals. And the number one player I always choose is, when you answer that question, to your second question about the individual, is Jason Robinson. When Jason Robinson came from rugby league, never played rugby union, came from a tough part of town, left school at 15, 16, tough kid. So I spent a lot of time, effort and money getting him over. But it was the best thing we ever did. He was, an absolute individual, but they're just simple things. First thing he did when he walked in the room, he takes out a pen and paper, writes everything down. And of course he would jokingly say it's because I'm stupid and thick. And I'm going, no, you don't realise what you're doing here. This is brilliant. You're writing everything down. Every player should be writing everything down. If we're having team meetings, you should be writing things down, learning about it from each other. And he set the standards because he was, we'd been pretty professional a couple of years when I got him in. So rugby league had been a professional for a long, long time. Jason had been professional all his life. He came in and took us to a new level. Just silly things. He always had a rucksack. He'd walk in with his rucksack. And I'm not sure he had his sandwiches and his whatever, but he literally had his packed food, his food for the day. He had water, he had a notepad, he had all this sort of stuff, and he never went anywhere without a rucksack. So what do? Get everyone a rucksack. So if Jason Robinson can do this, we're all going to have rucksacks. We're all going to bring our own water to the training ground instead of thinking, one of the sports science or the doctors can bring the water. No, we'll bring our own water. So great teams are made of great individuals. So individually, I can look after myself. I don't need these other people. And he took the whole thing to a whole new level. And then when you saw him play, you just went, wow. I mean, from Scotland, I remember we played against Scotland and we were playing at Twickenham, and Andy Nichol was the captain of Scotland, and there was about 20 minutes to go. We'd played really well that day at Twickenham. We were winning by about 40 points. And I brought Jason Robinson on, and Andy Nichol said to me afterwards, we looked up and thought, oh my God, we're getting a drub in here. And then now bringing on Jason Robinson, which that's what subs are all about. Can you bring someone to take the team to a whole new level?
But I wonder on Jason, were you aware of his quirks, if we can call him that? Were you aware that he was a top professional, or did you spend, as you say, the time, the effort, the money because of the player that he was?
There weren't quirks. I just knew what we're getting. Watching him play and speaking to people who work, they said, you'll love working with Jason. So these weren't quirks. These were just common sense things that we'd missed out on, that I'd not thought about before. And then you see all the other players go, whoa, if he can do it, we're all going to do it. So he took the team to a new level. There's no doubt about it in terms of everything he did, not just things like that on the training phase. Footwork drills were just amazing. So we said, where's this all come from? So he just, and that was one of the best things I've ever done. And that's why I really coined the phrase, great teams are made of great individuals. And the great thing about rugby, it is a very individual game. You've got prop forwards, you've got wingers, you've got scrum halves. They're all different. The positions are very, very different. But I'm trying to make them the best in the world. And it's almost like saying in Olympic terms, if playing prop forward was an Olympic sport, would you have the gold medal around your neck? So my job as England coach was to make sure every player had the ability to become a gold medal winner individually. And I'd say when we won 20 years ago in 2003, and I'll never name them, but we probably had 8 gold medalists in the team. We had 8 players out of the starting 15 would get in any team in the world, which is massive. Can you imagine that? If you get 8 gold medalists in your team, you've got to be a pretty daft coach not to win. But you need to say a rude word then. You'd be a pretty daft coach. But it's not about, it's about, but that's what I was most proud of, because I'd put that in place to make sure they were gold medalists. And, we have to do lots of wind-ups with players and saying, it's a good job you're English, because if you weren't English, you wouldn't be in the room. Because we've got better South Africans, New Zealanders, Scotsmen. There's 4 or 5 people ahead of you, in my opinion, the better players than you. What are you going to do to get up the ranking list in terms of individual players? And I think people surprise me because they think I'm going to come in speaking about team, and it's the complete opposite. Business and sport is no different, by the way. When I ran the rugby team, it was a small business. When I ran my business, it was obviously a small business, but it was based on the same facts. And you get every individual really working at their optimal level, promise you, the team stuff becomes quite easy to actually do. And some people get this totally wrong way around, and to me that's a big, big mistake.
In terms of teams and the makeup of them, Clive, you've got characters, obviously, and obviously that England team was full of big characters, big personalities, and then you've got kind of talent, the sporting talent side of it. And I wonder how much you see being the more vital ingredient of the two, because often we talk about winning teams being made of, you see it with Manchester United in football now, you've brought in, say, Casemiro and Martinez, and suddenly there seems to be more of a spirit in that dressing room, more passion, for want of a better word. Whether a manager has any kind of say over that or kind of influence over that, and whether that's down to the individuals, or is it more important just to have highly technical, highly skilled
It's interesting, because
individuals?
I'm a Chelsea season ticket holder, so it's interesting to talk about Manchester United. I'm still looking at Chelsea and thinking of all the issues they're going through, where it's not quite worked at the moment by bringing in talented players. All I can say as a coach for a rugby team, I'd always want to pick, having my team, the most talented player. I don't care what his history was in terms of whether being a bit awkward in it with another manager, a bit of a whatever. I'd want to bring in the most talented player. Then when I'm working with them, I'm going to make you better. So it doesn't matter who you are. If you're David Beckham, I'm going to make you better at taking penalties. This is my I'm make you better individual. I want the most talented players, but in return, this is going to be a two-way process. I need it back from you. So I'm going to give you all this stuff. I want it back from you in terms of how you're going to train, how you're going to perform. This is where the Perform Better program comes from. And if we do that, we're going to get on fine. I never lost a player because I fell out with a player, and I picked some of the most, I'd say, you're pretty challenging people, but they were great players. And in the team room, they were fantastic. If they know how to actually coach and manage them, and just go back to, if they really believe that me, the head coach, is trying to make them a better player, it doesn't matter whether you're Ronaldo, you're Beckham, you're whoever. If you believe that, you don't have a problem with, and I've never had a problem with any player at all, ever.
I want to ask, it's interesting you bring up Chelsea, 2 wins in 15, and Graham, I know him well. I think he will get it right. He just needs a bit of time, Clive. But in the case of that, about losing a dressing room, it's a kind of two-pronged question. And you can apply this to teaching as well if you lose a class. I've not been a teacher myself, but if the standards slip, if you smell off of a player or a kid that you've lost their respect for whatever reason, can you win it back? A football manager or a rugby coach, if they've lost the dressing room, this phrase we continuously hear, can they win it back? And I'd add to that, do you feel been in a position where you've thought, I'm in a dicey situation here, I'm on the precipice of losing some of these guys, I've got to pull it back?
Yeah, I think the stress to your listeners is about this losing the dressing room. You can do that, and I've seen it firsthand. I've been in that situation as a player, I've been in that as a coach.
And what does that smell like? What does that look like?
It's not a nice situation. It's like the opposite. When you walk into your team room and everybody is doing everything right, it's wow, it's fantastic. You enjoy coming to work. The opposite is not very nice, where you don't enjoy coming to work. You know the meeting's going to be a bit awkward. Suddenly people are not, contributing. They've all gone into their shells. They're what I call rocks, not sponges. Having the rock between their ear, not a sponge between their ear, and it's not nice. And all I know is you, as the head coach, have got to do everything to turn that around. Because if you don't, there's only the team's not going to win, but you're going to go as well. And it's not straightforward. It normally is. At times, and I've been totally guilty about this. This is part of, I was the coach of England for 8 years. Early on, I learned so many lessons early on and kind of got away with it in many ways because I managed to keep my position just about. But there was things you look back and usually you're a bit soft on people. I mean, my role model is always Ferguson. I love football. I love Alex Ferguson. I've been lucky enough to meet him a couple of times. But, I always use him as an example. He did get rid of Beckham. He did get rid of Stamp. He did get rid of Ronaldo. And everyone said at the time, they're going to go. They got better and better and better. And I've spoken to him about this, and I'm totally on the same wavelength. He said, only you will know it, where there comes a time where suddenly they're not giving it both ways. And then you've got to sit down with that player and know, I know this is happening. We are going to try and turn this around. So you just can't just fire them straight away. You've got to do everything humanly possible to turn them around and getting back to being what I call a sponge, where they are contributing, they are taking on new knowledge and learning and back how they used to be. But if they, after a period of time, won't come. You've got to move them on. There's no, and this is where the small business mindset comes in. When there's just 10 of you in the room, with Xerox, you can get away with it because there's thousands of people, there's loads of management layers, and you can shift people around and do all this sort of stuff. When it's your own small company, 10 people, and then we started off with 1 or 2, we got to 10. If there's someone in that room who's not contributing and not sometimes even trying or not trying to help other people, it's a very easy decision. They go. Because if you don't, you do lose your house, you do lose the business, you do lose your school fees. This is serious stuff. That's a great learning experience for anyone in a coaching experience. And that's how you have to do. I mean, Alex Ferguson was the best manager I know, followed by Wenger, who was also brilliant at this. Because the reason I respect them so much, because they've lasted a period of time. They were there for a long time. They went through success. They carried on being successful. And it's one thing being successful, can he carry it on? But I think... Sir Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger wouldn't be using the kind of words I'm using, but in many ways they are. It's exactly the same principle, which I kind of learned through business and sport and also learnt off them. And they were great. Both of them allowed me to go and see them and speak with them. And, they're very open to other people looking at what they're doing, which again is a huge, huge skill of a manager, where you're confident in your own skin to allow other people to come in and learn from you.
And that's the thing about sport, isn't it? It requires long-term planning, but then on the other flip side, there's a short-termism in sport where it's Saturday, the result needs to come. And obviously we've seen it with teams in transition, how teams can unravel so quickly, Clive. I mean, Liverpool, for example, almost did the quadruple last season. Now they're in the midst of a really bad spell. So when you're managing the end of players' careers, you're looking at the talent pool coming through, you're focusing on all of this, and yet you're still focused on the bottom line, which is the results-based business that sport is and the need to beat whoever you're up against that coming weekend. How do you manage that process? And how do you, in particular, manage transition as Alex Ferguson did so successely?
But I think that's why we love sport. I mean, there is no shortcut. There's no hiding place. You can't hide. But that's why we love it. That's why we love being part of it. And I think the big thing about it is you are anticipating this. The key word is, can you this is going to come at some stage. Can you anticipate it? Are you planning for? Are you making those changes? And all I'd say is, you've got to be brutally honest. And sometimes it's not nice to be brutally honest with people. Why this person's got to move on because you're bringing somebody else in, and you also think for no reason of his own, but you just think he's now not quite what he was. But you've got to move them on. And if you don't do that transition thinking all the time, you are going to come second. And once you lose it, you can't catch it back very, very quickly. So I'm agreeing with you, but I also think there is a loyalty factor in this as well. You want to stay loyal to your players, but you've got to be on top of them all the time. And don't get, it's professional sport. You should be on top of them. I should know every single moment what a player is doing, how he's reacting, how he's performing. And the moment you don't, if you let loose someone, you can lose that very, very quickly. I think the other thing, remember when I've played for the top level in rugby for the Lions and for England. Who's in the room who's not performing. You can't hide. I need to swear again. You can't hide. Please, players. The players will know if someone's not quite putting it in, or not what they were quite doing, or doing something else, or talking to another club or another whatever, you know. So there's no point trying to hide from the fact. And I think if you speak to any of the managers in football, and I've been lucky enough to speak to a lot of the top ones, they'll say they know. And you can't describe it. You just, the experience knows they're not putting it in. And don't forget, I'm trying to make you a great individual, gold medal winner in your sport, whether you're football, rugby, it's all the same, sport is individual. Many people say to me all the time, well, our sport's different, golf, swimming, all these, but they're not. Rugby and football are individual sports. They're individual. You're trying to make every individual better. And once you lose that, once that player's not trying to get better, to me, that's the time you just got to quietly, hopefully move them on without causing too many problems. But if you don't, also some of these contracts have been signed now.
Exactly.
I'm just chuckling at those.
Well, Chelsea.
8 years. 8-year contract. Great deal if you can get. I'm just going, whoa, that's gonna be challenging for some manager. It may not be the current manager, but some manager in the future has got to handle this. And you can look at the players who are just getting great contracts, and you've got to spend some serious money to move them on.
I know you're a big football fan, Clive, and I appreciate a lot of our questions have kind of been in and around football, but I was blown away by an admission from Gareth Southgate not long after England bowed out of the FIFA World Cup over in Qatar. Of course, beaten by France. Sorry, Robbie, I know you were there. I know it's still a sore one. He came out afterwards and said that he felt that the players didn't believe they could win. I was astounded at that. We were told that this England team were the best prepped of any England team at any World Cup. How can that manager of that team be telling the world that the players didn't believe? Because, forgive my ignorance here, I thought it's his job to ensure that those players believed in it. And I wonder, the inferiority kind of complex that seems to permeate the English football team. I mean, can you put your finger on that? And when it comes to that kind of that narrative or that rhetoric that Gareth is spinning there, I mean, as a coach of an elite team, as you were and still are with your ski academy, that mustn't sit right.
Well, they're better than Scotland.
You had to get that in. Yes,
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for you to finish talking.
I could see the eyes light up.
By the way, I stay at least a mile away from him
my favourite team, Scotland.
I
did. To be fair, I did cheer for you boys in 2003, and I mean that sincerely. But I found that an astonishing admission.
Oh, listen, I think Southgate's done a good job.
He's done a great job. Listen, I'm not here to stitch him up.
I never want to sort of talk negative about other football coaches. I think in many ways he was trying to take some responsibility himself, take it away from the players, and that's a sign of a good manager at a time when things are not going well. I have this saying called window and mirror. Have you ever heard it before? A window and mirror is basically this, and I teach people who work for me and want to be in my team. This is about being a great individual. What the window and mirror is, I must get this right. So when things are going really well, window, you look through the window and talk about anyone, talk about your parents, your coach, anybody, but you credit everyone else. Never talk about yourself. When things are going wrong, look in the mirror, and the only person you want to blame is myself. That person you're looking in the mirror. And if you get everyone in your team doing that, so in other words, when England bow out of the World Cup, in any World Cup, in football, rugby, we've got a big Rugby World Cup coming up. What if you do buy it? If everyone looks in the mirror, say, are we going to blame the manager? Are we going to blame, our defence or this? No. I was part of this team. Mirror, it's my responsibility. Talk about yourself. And I think that's what Gareth did quite well. And you look from the outside, but what else can you do? Look through he looked to the mirror and said, "This is down to me. We've not." And I think it was good management. He will take the team to the next Euros. And if you see some of the England players looking, Radford's coming back to form, and we've got a good team. And if it's not Gareth, who else would do it? I think he's done a really good job. So, and I think he was trying to protect the players and say, I'm big enough to say what I actually think. I'm not sure he actually does think that, but I think he was just using the mirror, talk about me, no one else. I'm not going to blame anybody else. The system did the players, and I think that was a good thing. And I got taught the window mirror thing a long, long time ago, and you see it in sport. When people get that right, it's really powerful. I'm doing it. But when things are going really, really well, talk about anyone apart from yourself. Look through the window. Credit other people. It's very powerful.
And when you took over the England job, Clive, there was an inferiority complex, I suppose, that existed in that England setup to the Southern Hemisphere teams at the time, whereby the All Blacks were up on a pedestal. South Africa had won a World Cup. There was a belief, perhaps, with Australia's success in 1991 that England weren't at that level. How do you rewire the psyche of a team and kind of rewire any sort of quote unquote inferiority complex? And was there a moment during that journey all the way through to 2003, was there a specific moment where you thought this team could actually win the World Cup? I believe that they can do it now.
No, again, looking back, you don't kind of plan for this. But, I played for England at the top level. And we won one Grand Slam. But, looking back at my career with England, hugely frustrated. We never really said we can beat the All Blacks or South Africa or Australia in those days because they were almost unbeatable. We're always trying to judge ourselves in the Six Nations, and every now and then we had a good time. And when I came in, I was kind of, okay, somehow I've got this job, I've got to put up or shut up now. And I made it absolutely clear from day one to players that the real enemy here are New Zealand, South Africa and Australia, because no one's won a World Cup from our part of the world. They're the enemy. Yes, we've been playing against everyone else in the Six Nations, but the people we've got to get past are these three teams. And we probably play on average once a year. We go away in the autumn to play. And so that's the game I want to win. But back to great teams and made great individuals. List all here the England players. Where are you? Whoever, Matt Dawson. And we're going to compare you with the New Zealand number 9. And I think he's ahead of you. So it's simple as that. So what we've got to do individually to get above these teams. So we went back to individuals. I was trying to get every player. Would you make the All Blacks team? Would you make the All Blacks team? Would you make the South African team? So I made it really personal, and I was really honest with the players that some of them did, so some of them didn't. And suddenly this just started to work, and suddenly you start to beat these teams, and you never look back. We were the big turning point for us. We went to Pretoria, which is a tough place to go, even on holiday. And it's a seriously tough place. I mean, I love South Africa, I love it, but go to Pretoria and try and play rugby up there. We went to Pretoria to a test match, and we got beat on the bell. Then we played the second test match in Bloemfontein, which is even tougher than Pretoria. I mean, Bloemfontein. Bloemfontein's a tough place. We went and then won the test match. That was, for me, the whole turning point in my career as a coach and as a team. To actually go, not just beat them at Twickenham. That's the point I stress also. It's one thing beating them at Twickenham. Can we go to Bloemfontein? Can we go to Pretoria? Can we go to Dunedin, these tough places where they really are tough, and win? And that's what we did. So we just got that win early, after about a couple of years of doing all this individual stuff. And suddenly we go, actually, and then the players start looking around changing. We think we can win this thing. There's no one we're worried about anymore. And between losing the World Cup to losing the World Cup in '99, and I've been in the job a couple of years. We lost in the quarterfinals. South Africa got smashed by South Africa and 5 drop goals. Between '99 and 2003, the record was like 95% win rate against the Southern Hemisphere, because that's who we set the goals against. And that's what we actually did. But it wasn't just words. It was, but how. And I just set the team up against every individual in their team. Hence, when you first said, great teams make great individuals, I'm glad you said that, because I would have started with that. That's what I'm about. Can I make you as an individual better? You're doing your job. No, I can certainly make you two better interviewers.
Yeah,
way,
I'm sure you could. There's no doubt about that. I wonder.
It's a big up ceiling.
There's huge. You can make a fortune doing it as well. I'll put your CV into the boxes, Clive. I want to know, obviously you make a million decisions and choices on a daily basis and a weekly basis, whether that's in teaching, for goodness sake, we're down here at James, or in the coaching realm. You're about 8 years in the job. A single decision that in the fullness of time you could look back on and go, I could circle that as being the catalyst for where we eventually got to, which was winning the Webb Ellis Trophy in 2003. Is there a specific moment, a conversation, a decision that you took that you think?
Yeah, there was actually. I think you speak to the players, they remember it. It was probably about a couple of years before, 2001. It was Autumn Internationals. We were playing against Australia in the Autumn Internationals at Twickenham. I remember just saying to the players before, we've done all this work on, as the clock ticks down, we're panicking. And I had this saying, it takes 20 seconds to score. And we were like 2 scores down with 5 minutes to go against Australia at Twickenham. They were playing really well. We were playing okay, but somehow we got ourselves in a bad situation. I think we were 13 points down, and suddenly, instead of tap and going and headless chicken stuff, just bang, line out, bash, and then on the bell we got into thing and we scored a try in the corner. We were on the game, and the literally players were walked in. They all thought I was some sort of hidden talents Where did that come from? Why were you saying all week, 20 seconds to score, 20 seconds to score? So that's what happened. And that was just the next part of our process in getting the mindset. In rugby, you can catch up very, very quickly. Short the weekend, Scotland should have won that game. There were 19 points adrift. They just caught up. They didn't panic. They kept playing exactly the same way. And you can actually do this. And rugby can change very, very quickly. But once you get this kind of into the team psyche about, let's not panic here. And we scored 2 tries on the bell almost to win the game. We never looked back from that moment in time. We suddenly realised, again, Australia were right up there with South Africa and New Zealand in those days. They were the top teams, which they're not at the moment.
And you were preaching all week in training, 20 seconds to score a try.
I was just saying 20 seconds became one of our
mantras
on the thing. We had these charts on the wall with all our team calls on, and one of them says 20 seconds to score. It's just about leadership and thinking how to win the game. It takes 20. Don't panic.
It's very similar.
Whereas before we went to Scotland and we lost the year before in the Grand Slam game with Ian McGeechan's team. And it was wet conditions. We got 2 scores behind. We were tapping and going, and we just got bashed. And we got smashed by the Scotland team, deservedly got beat badly. And that's where we learnt it from. We go, what are we doing? We were just panicking here, and there was no need to panic. And, but that's what I think coaching is about. You can create little mantras, little sayings. Great teams are made of great individuals. Are you good enough to be in this team? Are you a gold medalist, or are you not in on the podium? If you're not on the podium, we don't want you in the room. So it's people like this. I find players like this. They like to know where they are. And I took it out of the English thing. It was quite fascinating when you put all these players up all around the world. And I said, I won't name the players, but I said, it's a good job you're English, because this is you're an All Black. You wouldn't be in the room. You wouldn't even be speaking to me. So stop even moaning. You wouldn't even be speaking to me. So you're lucky you're English.
Yeah.
And I got, what have I got to do? And he went like that. So it was all good.
I know you shared that story about Arsene Wenger telling his each all 11 players on the field that they were the special kind of person that day, and he was relying on them and them alone, and kind of using that as a tactic. And they were completely unaware that everyone else had been given the same message. For the 2003 final, Clive, did you do anything different with the players, or did you have a different message for them?
No, honestly, but by that stage, that final week I'm so proud of that final week, because we just took the foot right off the pedal. We went to training, obviously, but we just walked around. Don't put your boots on, leave your trainers on. And what that did, that put them on edge, because they didn't think they'd done enough, because the proper way of doing it was probably going tougher and getting prepared. We took it right off, and even Martin Johnson and Lawrence Lado said, you sure this is right? I said, yeah, let's just stay on message, don't get distracted, and stay exactly where you actually were. But I just suddenly remember the story, and it's absolutely true, about the opposition team. What I used to love doing on the Friday night, and I would have done this in the World Cup final, but it would have been far more kind of far more serious. But we played the All Blacks one year, and I put our team up, and I put their team up. And this was Friday night. Our team meeting was the big kind of team meeting, and I've just trying to build this whole thing up. I said, look, boom, there's not a single player I would swap. There's not a single All Black I'd put in our team that's not sitting in this room. There's dead silence in the room. And then Will Greenwood, promise you, put his hand up in the room. And I've gone, oh, great, I'm getting through this. This is really good. I said, yes, Will. And he's all serious. And and Will stood up and he said, I know I'm speaking on behalf of myself, but I think I'm speaking on behalf of the whole team. I think we would swap Jonah Lomu for Austin Healey. And of course, the room it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And it was one of those great moments. And that's when you got a good team.
Yeah.
That was absolutely the right thing to do, because the room was like silent. I thought, oh my God, everyone's just almost a bit too serious. I think we would swap Jonah Lomu for Austin Healey.
If push came to shove.
And by the way, we would.
Yeah, we've had Austin in our midst. He's a great guy, and I wonder, you've touched on something really interesting there about a team room getting too serious, releasing that valve. How important is that in a successful makeup of a team as well?
Oh, I think team rooms are great. I love my team room, and I think the first thing, our team room was, it's an office, it's like this, usually a little bit bigger than this office. We had all sorts of things on the wall. But we had very strict, you mentioned team rules and teamship rules. We had really strict rules that when you walk in that door and you shut the doors, in our team room, I want to be able to say, within reason, what I'm thinking. Now, that may cause some umbrage to one or two people in the room, but I need to be myself. The first team rules, I don't want to read about this in tomorrow's paper or in the future in any books or something, but I need to be myself. And also, I need you to be yourself. in the business world, there's a thing called psychological safety, where in these meeting rooms, you need people to have the confidence to speak up. It doesn't matter if you've been in the team a week. If you've got an idea, and I make it clear to all the players, if you've got an idea and you're not confident of speaking up because you may be upsetting me, one of the players, we are going to fall out. We are seriously going to fall out. If you're sitting there because you don't feel safe in saying this, which I can understand. But conversely, if you've got an idea, let me decide, let the team decide whether it's, and sometimes it all kicked off, when I say kicked off, people shouting at each other. There's never blood on the walls, but it was all got it quite. And we used to say, but what we're going to do after this meeting, we all walk out that door holding hands. So we do not leave the room until we're all actually in agreement with what's going on. But I wanted to create an environment where people would say, well, some of our video sessions were quite manic because we want to win. I said, we're trying to win a World Cup. We're trying to be the best team in the world. I don't need people sitting on their hands here and saying nothing. I need you to call each other out if you think so. And sometimes it got a bit tasty. But that was fantastic. And it was afterwards you laugh about it, but at the time you go, whoa, calm down everyone. We're all right here. But your team room is really an important place. And you talk about losing the dressing room, it's the same thing. You can lose the team room, lose the dressing room. It's the same kind of anecdote. But if you know everyone's confident about speaking up, win, lose or draw, and often the times you can be really tough on people is when you win. When you win, you can start to be really, what the hell are we doing, this and that. It's when you lose, and I think when you win is the time to be quite kind of forthright in your opinion, because you try and get better. There's a great quote from Nelson Mandela, which I spoke to one school this morning about. I never lose, I either win or I learn. It's a great saying. I never lose, I either win or I learn. The key thing is learning. So that learning sometimes people need to get on the table, need to get their thoughts out there. But I want everyone's opinion, not just mine.
What do you say to people, and this could apply to students or anyone in business or anyone in any walk of life, Clive, when you summit the mountaintop, as you guys did in 2003, and we see this in sport a lot, and a dream is achieved and then there's a huge dip afterwards. Golf is a classic case in point where a player wins a major and then goes into a slump because they've realised a dream, they struggle to recalibrate their goals and their kind of motivational drive. What was your experience like in remotivating the England team? I know you had a certain vision for the future of England rugby, which maybe didn't tally with other people who were sort of making those decisions. What was your approach?
I guess we didn't handle it, or I didn't handle it very well, to be honest. But I got no regrets about that, because I don't think you can have a plan to win the World Cup. It's kind of one of those things. When it happens, you go, wow, and that was just the best experience of my whole life. Not just that day, but the whole 8-year period culminated winning the World Cup. So we kind of got to we got to the top, and that'll never be repeated. But I sat down, and I really did take a few weeks, wrote out a real detailed what happened next. And I went back to the RFU. And the RFU, they're much maligned, like a lot of these governing bodies. And I've certainly had a few pops them every now and then. But for me, for that 8 years, they were brilliant. They were absolutely first class in terms of their investment, their ability for me to go to the board, ask for things and get things done. They were fantastic. After the World Cup, where you think, right, we're now going to take on the world, we're now going to become this, a legendary team. Not just one World Cup, we're going to win it the next 2 or 3 or 4. Everyone seemed to. They said I changed. I don't think I did change. They changed, and I think they all got a little bit wary of me because I wanted to.
World domination
in rugby forever. That was it. You're not far wrong. I was under world domination, and that's what we're looking to actually do. And they didn't go with my plan. So the first time in 8 years, we had a serious fallout. And I was used to going to board meetings and having fallouts with people, because that's what you got to do as a head coach. And you can't. And we went on for a few months and months and months, and then, for various reasons, I got an offer to join a football team, and I said, okay, I'm just going to go. Okay, you do it then. It's good, and I resigned, and that shocked them to the hilt. When I gave my resignation to them, they didn't believe, because what the chief executive said at the time, I think he loves the job too much. He won't go. Don't worry. I did love the job. I loved the job, but I also wasn't going to be compromised, and we had to move on. And I'd like to think now, looking back 20 years on, we haven't moved on. And everything I said 20 years ago has come true, and I'm just hoping now with young Steve Borthwick in charge that, he gets his way and we get England back to the top, because we've fallen quite a long way since those heady days of 2003. Someone said to me in 2003 we won't win the World Cup for 20 years. I'd go, what happened? What went wrong? And so I left and moved on. I've never regretted it, because you move on, and I think what I quite pride myself on. You do move on. And, I've done great things, including this what I'm doing now, the Ski Academy and 8 Billion Ideas, and being over here and I've done various things. And I did 3 Olympic Games as director of sport for Team GB. So I've had a brilliant time. I'm still working hard now, but I still love rugby. As you know, I write in the media with the ITV and the Daily Mail. So I love rugby. You kind of look in and you just look back and said, I just wish they really. Maybe I blame myself. Back to window mirror. I just didn't do a good enough job in persuading this people to move to a new level.
Last one from me. I want to just finish up, come full circle on perform better, because it's not just athletes, it's not just children, human beings. Perform better is a mantra that can apply to anything. I just wonder, with 8 billion ideas and obviously with the perform better, what does it mean to you, Clive, that kind of phrase, perform better?
Well, perform better, especially if you're dealing with young people, it gives you a huge warm feeling. We met at school this morning, that's done the course the last 12 months, and to hear these young people speak about how they've applied it, not only to their education, but to their social life, their family life, is just, for me, fantastic. And again, like all things, I just fell into this. I didn't expect to be a professional rugby coach. Game was amateur, game goes professional, move on there. And I fell into the ski academy, and we created this, and to be very clear what perform better is, it's a whole series of things we do that allows you to perform better in the classroom, on the ski slopes. So it doesn't matter whether you're a drama student, a music student, good at maths, music, whatever. This Perform Better program allows you to actually to live a better life in other ways. But a bit like I said before, it's got to be a two-way process. We want you to really learn about this, we want you to study it, I want you to share it with your parents about how you do these things. And there's a lot of talk around mental health at the moment. This is my kind of answer to mental health. If adults, if we do these 6 things on a pretty high level, which is, common sense nutrition, sleep recovery, digital wellness and all this sort of stuff, some great topics, life skills, we'll do our jobs better and we'll be better people. So and the great thing about it, it's not theory. We're doing it in the academy, and we're now sharing it with everyone through 8 billion ideas, and I'm very proud of where it's going.
Well, listen.
Well, Chris and I need to go away and analyse our interview skills.
Yes,
I think,
we do.
Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Guys, 10 out of 10.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank
Don't want
you,
to get
Clive.
you guys sacked, I'm sure.
Thank you. It's been great. It really has. And a
Thank
big
you.
thanks to James and, of course, 8 Billion Ideas. Great to have you in Dubai. I know you're here for a flying visit, Clive, but thank you for sparing your time with us.
Thanks so much. Lovely to be here. Thank you.
Dubai Eye 103.8.
Join the conversation.